Welcome, folks. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech shehakol niyeh b'dbarei.
Amen.
L'chaim.
Amen.
L'chaim.
Amen.
Amen v'libracha. Welcome, folks. Good tavach. Shavua tov. A wonderful new week, which means new light, new life, which means, of course, new opportunities. And perhaps the most important opportunity in life is that we live free, freedom, not freedom of tyranny of government, although that might be also something good, a freedom of choice. Do we have freedom? Do we have freedom of choice? Can we become more free in choice? Or are we bound in a way that there's limited choice? So I'm sure you didn't think about this during the day. You had other things on your mind. Choice to an extent, right? That's what most people would say. You have a choice to an extent. Excuse me one moment. I'm exercising some choice. Think. Well, what's that, a choice or not a choice? To put on the AC.
A very good choice.
So that the question is if it was a choice or not. We'll get there. Hamid says it was a very wise and good choice. Even if it was a good choice, but that doesn't mean it was a choice. Maybe it was something good, right? So we need to understand this. All right, let's back up and begin. As we all know, God promised Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, that upon redeeming the Jewish people, leaving Egypt, they would come to Mount Sinai, and they would get their marching orders there. And part of that marching orders is that God's going to bring us into the promised land. Let's see if we can get this as promised. There we go. I will bring you to the land that I promised to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and Jacob, and I will give to you, and I will give it to you as a heritage. I am God. And of course, after receiving the Torah, finishing at Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai, last week we learned in the Parsha, we were there for, anybody remember from the Parsha? I don't think so. I didn't speak about it last week, this point. We're there from Rosh Chodesh Sivan in the first year after leaving Egypt. Right, 50 days after leaving Egypt, we received the Torah. We were at the foot of Mount Sinai until the 20th of Iyar, 10 days short of a full solar year, 10 days short. Okay. The plan was after that we would go into Eretz Yisrael. As a matter of fact, it was like a 3-day journey even that God was going to bring us. Okay. Initially. I got a little spoiled, but then as we learn in the Torah, and you all approached me, Moshe speaks and says in the book of Dvarim, let us send men ahead of us so that they will search out the land for us and bring us back word about the route we should ascend and the cities that we should approach. Right? So there was a request from the people. So what did Moshe do? What did he always do when there was a question? He consulted with Hashem. Exactly. Last week's parsha, we actually learned something about that, right? Miriam said some not, well, her intent was for the sake of heaven, but she said things that were, not the most exalted things about her brother Moshe. She got punished for that, and as Hashem says, he's not like any other prophet. She was a prophetess, and so was Aaron, but not like Moshe, because God would come at any time and speak to him. He would consult, or God would come to him at all times, right? He was unique. So if there's a question, hey, he's got the address. I wish, like, I had an app that any question that I have in the Chumash that we learn in the morning, or whatever it is studying, that I could just, type it in, get an answer from, Google Rabbi isn't so smart, because Google Rabbi gives you a lot of things that he gives you to to look at. Come on, give me a direct answer. Don't give me the 101 different things to go look up and now to become even more scholarly. I wasn't looking for that. I just wanted the answer. Right?
More like Rabbi Google.
Huh?
Rabbi Google, not Google Rabbi.
Yeah, well, right now we have Google Rabbi. Now, as again, I want to have it on my phone that I could just ask the question. So he asks, and that's what this week's Torah portion is. Shlach lecha, the beginning of the parsha. Someone needs to be muted. How do I go to mute all? When I'm here how do I do that? Unless I have to do it this way. Unmute.
Participants here. Participants. Be somebody
Here
here.
we go.
Yeah,
There
thank
we
you.
go. All righty. Yeah, perfecto. Thank you. Okay, parsha begins. Name of the parsha is Shlach. And it begins with okay, welcome folks.
We gotta get that fixed.
Everybody. Who's at the front door? Thank you. This is like comical. It's beautiful. All right. There we go. Okay. How that happened, I don't know. But okay. Shlach lecha nashim, send for yourself men, Yasuris Eretz Canaan, who will scout out the land of Canaan, of Canaan, Asher ani naisin livnei Israel, that I'm giving to the children of Israel. So, of course, the question that Rashi comes to answer, what do you mean, shlach lecha? Send for yourself. I mean, God is speaking to him and telling him what he should do. What do you mean to send for yourself? So Rashi explains, as we learned today in Chumash and Rashi, right? Oops. Here's the Rashi. Send for yourself according to your own understanding. I'm not commanding you to send. If you wish, send, right? Till this point, God was very decisive in everything that he told. What he told Moshe, he told him right from wrong in every instance till this point, right? And all of a sudden, he's telling, it's up to you. So if till this point, God has always been telling you right from wrong, has been very clear to you the path that you need to take, and all of a sudden, he's saying, if you want, you could send. Isn't that itself a sign that, don't send? It's like your wife says to you, if you want, you could do it. You know what your wife means by that. Now, I don't want to compare God to a wife. Because he's the husband in the relationship. We're the wife. Yet, the very fact that till this point, everything's been very clear and decisive. And here, God is saying, if you want, you could. Why would Moshe take the initiative? We need to understand. Furthermore, in the Haftorah from this parsha is about Yoshua, who is, of course, the leader after Moshe. And he also sends spies into the land of Canaan before they go to conquer it. And of course, why did he send spies? Because he learned from Moshe. Yeah, but we know the end of the story here. It didn't work out with the spies. So if it didn't work out for Moshe, learn from that. Why are you learning from the fact that he did send, rather you're learning from the fact that it didn't work out and don't send? We need to understand that. So to appreciate this, we have to go back to the point that we brought up at the beginning of the class about freedom of choice. Was I free to put the air conditioning on? Was I free to take a cup of water? This is a great debate that is probably been forever, I would imagine, right? Since humanity. The empirical experience is what? That I do have freedom of choice. I could choose. I did choose to go for the water. I did choose to put on the AC, right? And so on and so forth. But if you would ask Darwin, what would he tell you? What would he tell you?
Ingrained in you, and
it's dictated by biology. It's your biology, right? Shabbos, the temperature was at 70 degrees, and there was a group that wanted it down at 69, and there was a group that wanted it up at 71, if not more, if not less, right? Why? What was the difference between one or the other? One is it's biology. What? It was their biology. Some people, they're all sweated up, and some people are by nature more cold in an environment, and that's their nature. So your nature is what made you choose, right? Is that freedom of choice? Not really, no. So that's what Darwin would say. If you would ask Karl Marx, what would he say? Huh? He would tell you that it was a social factor that made you put on the air conditioning, right? You got swayed by this group because of the social standing of this group, rather than that group because of their social standing, right? So that's what swayed you, right? And if it was Freud that you were asking, what would he say?
He would say something vulgar.
He would say, "Oh, what your mother put you through." That trauma. Oh, of course you want the air conditioning at 60 degrees. Yeah. Or you wanted it at 79 degrees, what? All right. That's what it would be. But the bottom line, do we have choice? No, we don't have any choice. So what does the Torah tell us? The Torah tells us a little different story. Talmud tells us, Rav Chanina said, all is in the hands of, that was in the hand of God. Except for the fear of God. All in the hands of God, except for the fear of God. Everything is controlled by heaven. So we think we experience freedom of choice, but really everything is scripted. It wasn't scripted merely in biology and the social fabric and the trauma that you had in your youth. It's actually scripted from time immemorial, from God Almighty, before even creation. And he puts it into the very fabric of creation, into the very DNA of creation, right? Everything, except for one thing, the fear of heaven. What does it mean, the fear of heaven? It's actually also an important term. What do you mean, the fear of heaven? What it means to say moral choices. When it comes to morality, that was not dictated. To choose right from wrong, that wasn't dictated. Whether I'm going to steal or not steal, whether I'm going to say a nasty thing, vulgar language or not, that wasn't dictated. That wasn't dictated, right? But the question is, how do we understand that? How would that be? Why should it be that way? How does it make sense? If everything is dictated by heaven, now, we want to understand the process, not just that the outcome is that way, right?
Yes.
How do we understand this concept? So let's go to understand creation itself. From understanding creation. So we just started Shar Yichud Emunah. Actually, we're in chapter 6 now in Tanya, of the second part of Tanya. But understanding the power of Creator within creation. So this is in chapter 1. The Alter Rebbe says, creation of heaven and earth are from absolute nothingness is more wondrous than splitting the sea of reeds, right? When the Jews crossed and they were saved and the Egyptians were drowned. In that case, God directed an easterly wind to blow through the night, and the waters split and stood upright like a wall. Had God suspended the wind for even a moment, the waters would have immediately flowed downward, as is their pattern in nature. They would certainly not have stood upright like a wall. Stone walls stand upright without the support of a wind. The nature of water is different. Creation is a greater wonder. This cup of water is a greater wonder than the splitting of the sea. To create something from nothing or no thing defies the laws of nature. It is much more miraculous than splitting the sea of reeds. It follows that the withdrawal of the Creator's power from created things, God forbid, would certainly cause the created thing to revert to no thing, nothingness. Rather, the Creator's power must be continually present. Oops. Yes, continually present in the created being to give it life in an ongoing existence. Anybody a cartoonist here? What is a cartoonist? Back in the day, how did they do?
3D animator.
Huh?
3D animator.
Back in the day, I'm not talking, back in the day, what did they do?
Page by page.
Page by page. And what did you do? You just flip it, right? And it looks as if it's animated and there's movement. But in fact, each one is a still of its own, right?
Hi, Gene.
Hello?
Yeah.
So was there a question? Or was that just...
Andrew was going to ask.
Oh, Andrew, did you want to ask something?
But you might want to unmute him.
Well, he could. No, okay, I think maybe. Andrew, if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, please do. If not, maybe that was just an accident. Okay, so that's the way creation is. God is giving life for this moment with the breath of his mouth, with the word of his that comes from him, that he utters it and brings into creation. Something that we've spoken about many times. We're learning it again now in Tanya in great detail. And this is how God animates the world. Excuse me. It's like a still in the moment. He retracts the word brings it back in and out. So the entire being of the individual is totally depending on God, right? So even in the moment before when I sat, God gave me the power to sit, and then gave me the next movement in the animation that I got up and put on the air conditioning. Did I have choice? Perhaps not. Perhaps that was, Darwin would say, biological. Marx would say social fabric, right? And Freud would say, the traumas of life or from youth. All of that is also part of God animating everything and giving life. And therefore, I'm not really free to choose, right? But the question is, when it comes then to moral choice, how is it all of a sudden there? I do have freedom. Isn't God animating and giving me life? And he's the one who put into the DNA everything of me, everything of creation. So then why would I have the capability to freely choose when it comes to moral choice, as the Talmud tells us, right? You know why? But
everything is a moral choice.
no, not everything. What that which is a moral choice. How do we? Where do we get that from? Well, we don't get it from science. You won't get it from psychology.
Sociology.
You won't get it from sociology. You only get it from one place, and it's called the Torah. God said so. God says, see, I place before you today the life and the good, the death and the bad, and that you should choose life. God said, I'm giving you the choice. In other words, freedom of choice is not a matter of experience. It's actually an article of faith. It's an article of faith.
So the fact that we have the freedom of moral choices.
It's an article of faith, right? In other words, experientially, not necessarily that would be the case. Even, we experientially, we feel that we have the freedom to go and choose to put on the AC.
Yes.
We don't. Unless it's a moral choice, which we'll get into that in a moment, right? If not, right, God is animating, he's giving life. So in other words, it's what he put into the breath of that moment, the vibrancy of that moment, right, which is already planned and part of the DNA of creation that God has already put into the very fabric of creation and continuously does that. So it's not like he just put it one time, but he continuously does that. So therefore, in that sense, I don't have choice, except because God dictated that he is, so to speak, removing himself and making a vacuum in order that we can have a place that we could choose when it comes to moral decisions. Right? Now, it seems to be somewhat a paradox because either or, like, how does one, like, why would that be when it comes to moral choice that there you do have the freedom, but when it comes to choosing that I'm gonna wear a black suit, I'm gonna wear a white shirt, or I'm gonna wear pink, or I'm gonna wear blue, or whatever. Why is that not a choice? Well, why is one more than the other when it comes to creation? When it comes to, again, experientially, we don't experience a difference between them. Philosophically, Darwin and Marx and Freud would not make a distinction between them, right? But here we're making a distinction. Now, that's why it's an article of faith ultimately, because Torah says so, right? Torah says so. And God is omnipotent, so therefore, yes, he can create a paradox. That's not a problem, right? But the question is why? Why would he do it? Well, because that's the very purpose of creation. The very purpose of creation is, as Abraham Lincoln said by the Gettysburg Address, what did he say? He said, a government of the people, for the people, and by the people, right? Sidis explains that God created the world, absolutely. But what did he do it for? What was because he wanted it by the people. He wanted it by the people that they should create a home for God. Concept that we've learned many times, concept of dir b'tachteni, making a dwelling place for God in this world, right? So, and not just in this world has the status of being the lowest of all worlds. There's spiritual worlds that are more lofty worlds, right? Gan Eden, where souls reside of our loved ones who've passed on. It's a much higher place in spiritual terms. But yet that's not what God desires. He doesn't want to, it's not Gan Eden that he needs or wants or desires. It's this world that he wants, right? And therefore, if we behave in a godly way over here, we carve out a space in this low world, in a world that would otherwise be godless, and we make it godly. Again, a concept that's very, but here's the key to it. The key to it is that it needs to be of the people, meaning of our own initiative. So, in our own initiative, what does that mean? What do you need? You need freedom of choice. You need freedom of choice. That it should be of our own initiative, right? That makes sense. As the Rebbe says, when God expressed a desire for a home in the lower realm, he wanted a lower realm to choose to become a home for him. He wants the lower realm to choose. Who's of the lower realm is us, right?
I did. I took it off already.
No.
I think it's broke. It's broken.
Participants.
Okay, I thought that was my voice though. Okay. Things are happening. I need a l'chaim. Okay. So to accomplish this, it was necessary that the home be created not just by Jewish souls, but by souls vested in physical bodies. Only then the home is built in the lowest realm. If God were to build his home through us by compelling us to build it, we creatures of the lowly realm would not become a home for God on our merits. So God pulled off the impossible miracle. He gives us freedom of choice, right? Even though he continuously is creating us out of of nothingness, right? Yet his desire is that we have freedom of choice, that we choose to create a home because that's what we want to do. Now, in choice, there are two kind of levels. There's a choice, for example, when, in a husband-wife relationship, the wife has very clearly dictated certain things that she wants. Does the husband have a choice? Yes, but it's not a real free choice. It's a compelled choice in a sense, right? It's not truly free, right? But you could choose not to, right? But you could choose. Same thing is, God has given very clear dictate of what he wants. He wants us to eat kosher. He wants us to keep Shabbos. He wants Shabbos candles. He wants, we just came from Shavuos that we should be in shul hearing the Ten Commandments. He's dictated very clearly certain things, right? Are we compelled? We're not completely compelled because we can choose not to, right? It's our choice. But in a sense that we are somewhat compelled because we know that that's what he wants. So we are free to choose, and God will not interfere in the choice that we make. But in some level, there is some compelling, force that we are aware of by the fact that this is what God wants. But then it comes to other things in life, like where should I live? Not a mandate in the Torah. Should I live in a beautiful home by the lake? Or should I live in a Jewish community? Should I take a job that I have to work really hard, or take a job that's easier and not work so hard, right? Those are not dictates in the Torah, right? Should I go to, this kosher restaurant or that kosher restaurant, right? Not dictated. It's a kosher restaurant, right? So God didn't dictate which one to go. So in those areas, in mundane activity where there isn't a direct, mitzvah that God is like, hey, yes, I want you to do this. Okay, I'm not forcing it. The choice is yours, but it's not a complete freedom of choice. It's not complete. It's not initiated from us. It's initiated on high. And our choice is whether we're going to, if we're going to comply, right? That makes sense?
Yes.
So, as we just said, there is the range of free choice is not limited to the 613 commandments. On the contrary, our primary freedom of choice is the exercise of mundane choices, things that we do on our own volition without being instructed to do so. In these areas, we make the choice with complete freedom, or as we said, our freedom of choice is primarily emphasized in the context of Azak choices. So let's get back to the choice between the two restaurants, right? Let's say I like, Benny's. Okay. Huh? Oh, it's kosher. It's all good. Yes. Let's say I like, yakimono, right? And my wife likes chops. Right? So we could go 50-50. You go there, I go here. No. Now you can one time this, you go here, and one time you go there, right? You could do that. Each one gets their choice. Was that a choice? Not really. Why not? Why not?
Because you're still considering the other person.
No, because you weren't really considering the other person. You went 50-50 considering the other person. So you weren't really considering the other person.
Exactly.
Not really. You just split it. Okay, so you have no choice. So you split it. But that's not really considering the other person. When you really consider the other person is when you say, wherever you want to go, I'm happy either place, right? What does that mean? You have called, no, that's not called compromise at all. That's called having the fear of God in your life. That what's more important is God's presence in your life in that choice. In that choice. Going 50-50 is just, that's Darwin, right? Unless, you're just strong-minded and you're going to force your way. So, okay, you'll be, survival of the fittest, right? So you'll always get to go to where you want to go because you're the strong-minded one and the other one's the weak-minded one. And that's what will happen, right?
Right.
Or it could be that you bring God into your choice. Honey, wherever you want to go, I'm happy, right? Meaning,
Chops, chops.
you
Oh, Rabbi Fun. Chops, 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 chops.
know, Helen, you know what they say? Whatever happens in Chabad Zichring stays in Chabad Zichring. So the point being, what did you do? You introduced what's called the fear of God. Fear of God means the presence of God. Fear in Hasidic jargon doesn't mean fear of punishment, but fear means just as when you're in the room by yourself, you act one way, someone walks into the room, you act differently. Why? Because there's the presence of someone. Now, just the very fact of the presence of someone, you act differently. So when you have the presence of God in your life, meaning the awareness of God, right? And therefore now you're making your choice based on that presence of knowing that there is a God in this choice to be made, and you work through it, right? Like in this instance, that's a no-brainer, right? Going to Chops. Actually, my wife likes it. I think Yakimono better. Me, I like it at home better. But we won't go there. So what are we doing? We train ourselves to bring into the area that there is no obvious command, no obvious path to take, but we bring the presence of God there, which means the fear of God, that God is present in this choice, in this mundane activity of going to a restaurant. And the same thing can be when it comes to the air conditioning, right? As I tell everybody that comes and tells me what temperature the air conditioning should be, they're only concerned with one thing, themselves. But and not because I'm better, but I have a responsibility to think about everybody and what would be best for everyone, and not just how I feel. And therefore, I have to take into consideration how it will affect everybody, because that's my role, that's my duty. And that's the presence of God in that choice, right? The presence of God in that choice. And therefore, when you bring that presence, that awareness that in this mundane, simple little, equation of that moment of life, well, you can have freedom to choose. Which tells us something phenomenal, by the way. We have the choice to have more freedom of choice than less freedom of choice, only by our the awareness that in every moment there's possibility, a moral equation, meaning that there's the presence of God in that moment on how I should deal with that particular moment. For the most part, we abdicate freedom of choice. And what do? We live on autopilot, on Darwin's theory, on Marxist theory, and on Freud's theories, That's what we usually do. We've abdicated. Not that we've had choice. We abdicated choice. But we're free to not do that, which means we have to work hard to exercise our, to have an exercise in our lives of thinking of God's presence in every possibility. And what does God need from me in this moment? What does he want from me right now? Right? To be, again, a very simple thing. Now, don't overthink. If you're going to take a cup of water and then take a drink, it's God, do you want me? God want me? Like, no, then you're going to go crazy, right? Don't do that. But when there is about the air conditioning, this one wants like that, one that likes like that. So take into consideration not how you feel merely. When it is about going with your spouse or going with your friends or whatever, obviously it's kosher. That's not the issue. But, what would be better? Maybe, to go to Chops and that you're with a group of friends and this one, they can't afford it. So you take that into the equation and you say, you know what? I'd rather, and instead of embarrassing someone and saying, you know what, it's too expensive at Chops and you have money, you say that. So they know they're not talking about you. So you just embarrass somebody by saying that. But if you say, you know what, I really like this at Benny's, and I would like to go to Benny's because I wouldn't mind having this. So you actually putting it on yourself as if you're like, thinking about yourself when you're not thinking about yourself at all. You're thinking about the other person who can't afford it, and therefore you're making that suggestion for their sake. Is that ever the presence of God in your life? And you're bringing God into the choice that you are making? That's called true freedom of choice. That makes sense?
Yes. Wow.
Hi.
No.
Now that my children learned that when they were going to the grade school, the Jewish grade school, that was one of the things they learned immediately as soon as they were there. It even worked on me. It did. I was like, what, Mom, and then they backed us, I would just go, oh, you learned that in school? They said, yeah. It's really nice.
Wow. Okay. So those are the two modes of divine service. Commanded? Yes, dear. Not commanded, right? And to figure out what dear would like, even greater, right? What dear Almighty would like, right? And they're not influenced on high. So these two modes correspond to the 2 months of this time of year. We're in the month of Sivan, and we are coming to the month of Tammuz. The month of Sivan, what is it marked by? Excuse me, as the Rebbe says, the third Hebrew calendar month, the month of Sivan, is marked by God giving the Torah from above. Even our reception of the Torah is inspired from above. We stand proverbially near Mount Sinai and receive the commandments as they descend from above from God. The following month's theme, which is next month, Tammuz, marks the Jews' journey away from Mount Sinai, initiating the worship of God from below. We begin to transform the world into a home for God according to the instructions we received earlier at Mount Sinai. So Sinai is I'm the Lord your God. It was such an unbelievable revelation of God that our souls took flight. It was so powerful, so compelling. Of course, God, we're yours, right? No question. Was it a choice? Yes, but it was somewhat compelling. The month of Tammuz is marked by the 17th of Tammuz, which is a fast day, which is the days that the holy temples, the walls were breached. It's the day that the tablets were broken, and Moses came down from the mountain. And it brings out the idea of exile, where the presence of God isn't so obvious, right? We're not swept away by the presence of God as when we had a temple or when we stood at the foot of Mount Sinai, as the month of Sivan represents, right? God's presence is concealed, which what that means is the choice is not so obvious, right? But what that means is we have greater freedom of choice as a result. We can enlarge our freedom to choose as a result, right? So that's in time, the 2 months. We see that in space also, if you will. The old world, the shtetl world, right? Came Friday night. What kind of choices did you have in the shtetl? Gonna make kiddush with this goblet or with that goblet? This wine or that wine? That was basically your choice. Why? Because the biological makeup of the individual was, hey, it's Shabbos. The social fabric of the world was, it's Shabbos. And your mother gave it to you if it wasn't, you weren't making Shabbos. Right? Comes America now, comes Friday night. We have a lot of choices to make, right? We have a lot of choices. And, right? But where is the greater freedom? In the land of freedom. In the shtetl, we didn't have freedom. It was a compelled choice relative to what we have now. Now, we're truly free to choose. And therefore, it's a much greater accomplishment as a result. That with everything that goes around in this world today, and that, 150 years ago, the non-Jewish world was an outside world. Today, the non-Jewish world is in the palm of our hands, right? And everything that's in this is the outside world is literally not just in the inside world, but it's in the very heart of every individual today. So that is a more challenging choice. In other words, to bring an awareness of the presence of God, that that God is relevant in this moment when he's so concealed and not so palpably real in my life, and yet to bring him into that moment, into this time where we live in now, is a much greater accomplishment and truly a freedom of choice. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah? Yeah?
Yes.
Everybody online? We're good? Is everybody there? You're all aboard? All with me? Who's again?
Hi.
Aye, aye. All right. Huh? Oh, Andrew. Okay. All right. Yeah, thumbs up. I want to see thumbs up again. Thumbs up, thumbs up. We got thumbs up. Okay. All right. Suzanne, I don't see some thumbs up. Andrew. All right. Oh, okay. Beautiful. All righty. What happened to... Oh, okay. Menachem Hillel is there. I didn't see him for a moment. No, that's not the right one, is it?
Yeah,
No.
this is the email now.
Huh?
You're sharing the email there.
Yeah, I don't know if that's... What do you see on...
The bod, one attachment.
Huh?
Oh, no.
The bod,
Yeah,
one
your
attachment.
email.
Share
Okay.
that, right? Click on share screen. Hold on.
What happened to it?
Click on the P. Yeah, there. Yes.
All right. So let's go back to the beginning We had a question. What was our question? A long time ago.
Do we have free choice?
That we've dealt with now,
Right.
right? That was the original thought, but then we went into the parsha. Moshe, what are you doing? Why are you sending spies? Isn't it clear from God that he's always giving you direction, that he's now not giving you direction, that you should not get involved in this? So now what's the answer? We have the answer. It's pretty clear, right? Moshe saw this as a great opportunity. God is bringing us into a deeper relationship with him. Till now, he told me everything what to do. But guess what? He thinks I'm a grown-up now. Or better yet, the Jewish people are grown-ups, right? And I don't have to tell them everything. They could figure it out on their own. What do I want? Where they're going to be able to bring into their lives an awareness of my presence, thinking about Hashem. That's the fear of God, just the fact that you think that he's present in your mind, in your heart, in your life, there in your world, and choosing based on that. Now, even though we do that, we might make a mistake at times, right? But what is God doing? He's empowering us, believing in us, giving us the opportunity that we can now bring our connection to him, our relationship to him, to a much more deeper and profound place, right? As the Rebbe explains.
That whole generation perished.
But yeah, but you're skipping. You're skipping. No, you're not hearing, because then you take the message first, and then you make sure that it's very clear the message. Not that you don't have a question, but if this is emphatic, the question kind of answers itself. Okay. I think I did answer it already, if between the lines. But let's first see this. Text number 10 from the Rebbe. God told Moshe, send for yourself according to your own understanding. I'm not commanding you, if you wish, send. This time, not only was Moshe not concerned that sending the spies might be inappropriate, that was our question, right? But on the contrary, he rejoiced over the novelty of this instruction. Going forward, Jews would be able to worship God with absolute free choice, without requiring divine instruction at every turn. Rather, the Jew would be trusted to figure out God's will by aligning their mind with God's will. Wow, this is a new era. Like, we got to get up and sing and dance right now. This is what this parsha is telling us, right? That God is bringing the relationship to a different place. He's not treating us as children, right? That he would trust us, that we would be empowered with the freedom of choice. And Moshe jumped at the opportunity and celebrated it, right? Now, yes, Helen, it didn't turn out so well. No, it's correct. But that doesn't take away of what to celebrate,
No.
right? You want to be a child, or do you want to be the adult in an adult relationship? Or you want to be a child in the relationship, or do you want to be the adult with the adult relationship? What?
There to be a very valuable learning experience.
Okay, well, this then we can understand why then Yoshua did send spies, because he understood that this was what God wanted. He wanted us to use our minds to understand, to figure out exactly what the divine will is. That we should be in sync and aligned with it. That's exactly what he wanted. Yes, it didn't work out this time, but that's not the point. In other words, Moshe knew that there was a chance here. He knew that. He knew clearly that there was a big chance. I won't say big chance of failure. Maybe that's not proper, but he knew that there was some issue that, that might fall apart over here. Listen, Jews have been commanded and they don't listen to God also, right? So here they're not being commanded and, and not to listen. So, he's had experience. He knows his flock, right? But yet he jumps at the opportunity because he realizes is this advancing our relationship with Hashem. We're now not the child in the relationship. We're a little more mature now, and God is giving us and believing in us, and therefore we have to jump at it, right? There's no question about that. And this is true freedom. This gives us the opportunity that we can then bring things to the next level. And with this, we can understand something amazing. How precise and how perfect everything is. The spies were sent on the 29th day of Sivan. 29th day is the last day of the month of Sivan before the next month. In other words, it's the threshold, right? They were on the threshold to the next point. What was Sivan? Command from on high. What is Tammuz? From below, right? It is not being commanded. It's a time when we don't have the presence of God openly revealed in the holy temple. It's about this, time of fasting for destruction. Presence of God is concealed, and we have to work from below to above rather than the month of Sivan, which is from above to below, God giving us the commandments, God bringing about his presence in our lives. So this is the perfect segue, right? So this is when they went, right? Going into the next month. The day before was the 28th of Sivan, when the choice was, when God said, Shlach lecha, on the 28th, the day before, when God gave the dictate. And 28th of Sivan, for Chassidim, is a very special day, because in 1941, that's when the Rebbe and the Rebbitzin came to America. That's when they came to America. On the 28th of Sivan. Yeah. In 1941, they came. What's the significance in that day? So based on what we're learning over here, is because that's the day that God gave empowerment, that we can make a dwelling place for God in the lowest world, right? This physical world is the lowest world. And that we can, through the mundane physical world, right? In other words, where God doesn't command us, we can have a relationship with him there. We can make a dwelling place for him and bring his presence into our lives, and by way of freedom of choice. So we freely choose to have an awareness of what he wants, what he needs from us, even though he hasn't dictated it to us in America. And it's interesting, America, the sages call Israel the upper hemisphere, and the east of Israel, or not just from Israel, but Europe, Israel is called the upper hemisphere, right? And America is called the lower hemisphere. Now, I know geographically we call it, South America, North America, right? Right, Australia and Europe and so on. Right, that's because that's based on the equator, right? So this is based on Israel being the middle of the, being like on the upper sphere and the upper hemisphere. So this is called Chetzi Kader Atachtain. This is called the lower hemisphere of the world, America. And in this context, we understand Torah was given on the higher, right? It was given in the higher spheres. It's a more spiritual place. Europe was more spiritual, the shtetl. America, why was America called the Treifa Medina, right? The non-kosher country that you're going to come here and you're going to assimilate. But who then came on the 28th of Sivan when the command was given? Shlach lecha. And what is the Rebbe's accomplishment in our generation? Shlichus. What shlichus? Emissaries. The Rebbe has over 5,000 emissaries throughout the world, in every corner of the world. Over 5,000 that are paid to do work in a Chabad house and work with the people in the community to bring them closer to Hashem. So this is what this day is, the day of shlach, send, lacha. No command. Think about it. Till the Rebbe, no one had emissaries around the world. Even Moses didn't, right? He had judges, judge the people. And where did he have it? Only in the desert. Okay, that's where the only place the Jews were. That's true. But never throughout the history of the world was there an individual who shlach sent people without being commanded on high. I mean, I don't know. The truth is, I don't know what God tells the Rebbe, so I can't say. Right? But no precedent for it. No precedent. And yet, the precedent, we've been empowered. And we've been empowered with something even more. The Alter Rebbe believes in us more than we believe in ourselves. The Alter Rebbe believes that we could have mastery over ourselves in thought, speech, and action. That we could have every action, every word we say, and every cogitated, willful thought, that we can be in control and do exactly what God wants, right? That's pretty awesome. He believes that we could do that. Now, I believe also in theory, shall we say. But the Rebbe believes in us even more so, because he gave over to us. Actually, interesting. Wow. Also the 28th. 28 means what in Hebrew? Chav ches. You know some Hebrew? Koach, power. The power of the month is the 28th of the month. 28th of power of the month. So the power was given on the 28th of Sivan when the Rebbe came. The power was given that we can turn over America. No one thought Judaism would survive in America,
Yes.
right? The 50s and the 60s, no way. It wasn't going to survive. Look magazine had a picture of like a Hasidic Jew on its cover once and saying, will Judaism survive? Look magazine does not exist anymore. But Jews, huh?
Life, life. Now you don't know that. There's a magazine called Life, but it was Look, you said, I don't know.
Yeah. Anyways, point being that the power of the month is Koyach, the 28th of the month, and the 28th of Sivan, Rebbe came, and the command was given then, Shlach Lecha, the Rebbe sends emissaries, and the month before is Nisan, which is also on the 28th of that month. The Rebbe, 11 months to the day before he had his stroke, which was on the 27th of Adar, he gave over to us that we are the ones who are going to bring Mashiach, the ultimate empowerment. We couldn't take what the Rebbe said. We couldn't take it. I remember it very clearly. The Rebbe spoke. What do you mean? You're giving us, we're empowered? The Rebbe said, I did everything I can. And obviously I haven't accomplished it. And he's giving it over to us. We didn't understand at that moment what it meant 11 months later that he would have a stroke, obviously. And that we, kind of led to Gimel Tammuz, of course, which is coming in 2 weeks. But he gave us the empowerment that we have the power that we could bring the final redemption, us small little people. So you think, how's that possible? You know how it's possible? Based on what we just learned over here, the concept of choice. Again, in Europe, in Israel, in a holy land, with a temple, God's presence, you're compelled in your choice. Today, there's nothing compelling anybody to choose to do a mitzvah. Why are you doing it? Why are you here? Why are you here? Because you chose to. You chose to bring the presence of God into your life. When you think about it, who else is doing it? Are your friends doing it? Your family doing it? Are others doing it? Maybe. That's why it's important to be in a good community with people who are doing it. So then it strengthens each other. That's very important. It is. But when you think about it, the real freedom is today. And that's why it says Moses last week, it said he was the most humble person on the face of that. He's the most humble person on the face of the earth. Talmud tells us that he looked in the future, and you know who he saw? He saw you guys sitting here and you guys online and saw our generation. And he says it was humble to us. Humble to us. Moshe Rabbeinu, who spoke with God. Yeah, because he spoke with God. What choice did he have? Now, he was such a lofty individual. That's why he was able to speak with God, right? One thing comes with the other. But yet, God's not speaking to us. And if you think he is, please bring yourself to psychiatry. But you speak to God or bring God into your life when the world is so dark and the world is so the au contraire, right? And you bring that into your life is a complete choice, a freedom of choice. That not being compelled by anything except something from the inside that is driving you in a unique fashion. And that what needs to drive us, that we have to understand that the Rebbe made us all shluchim. I'm a shliach of the Rebbe. Maybe I'm compelled because I was in the presence of the Rebbe and I know how important it is. And after all, I get a paycheck, so I have to do the job. You don't get a paycheck. You weren't in the presence of the Rebbe. But you know what? You could still make that choice. That you could think of yourself as you're an emissary of the Rebbe. Emissary of the Rebbe doesn't mean you have to have a Chabad house that you are, working, but means that you feel yourself as an emissary of the Rebbe to bring the Rebbe's teachings, the Rebbe's message, whether it was Shavuos that people have to go hear the Ten Commandments, whether it's putting on tefillin with another Jew, whether it's inspiring a woman to light Shabbos candles, or just sensing that you are the embodiment of a reflection of the Rebbe. You're a reflection of the Rebbe. And that's a choice that you make. It's a choice that we have to constantly make because our evil inclination gets involved and wants to choose other things instead. But the greatest empowerment that we have in our day is that we could choose to be the Rebbe's emissaries to do the work that he has empowered us on Koyach Nisan, on the power, on the 28th of Nisan, that it's up to us that we could bring the final redemption. As the Rebbe came to the shores of America on the 28th of Sivan with that empowerment of Shlach Lecha, that we have to be, we're sent. And that's a choice. You have to choose it. But whoever does, Ashrei Chelkecha, how lucky you are. For me, there is no greater gift in my life as being the Shliach of the Rebbe. And again, I want to make clear, I have a wife and family, unbelievable, beautiful, but that's not who I am. I'm not a father. That's not who I'm a father, but that's not the essence of me. A mother, the essence of a mother, not a mother. You're a person. Because there are people who are not mothers and people are not fathers, right? So what? They're not people. So that means even the one who is a father and a mother, you can't say that that's who you are in essence. You're a person. Oh, what's your personhood? What does it mean? I'm a Jew. That's who I am. And in that being a Jew, being the emissary of the Rebbe, right, and feeling that in my Jewishness, I am the reflection of what the ultimate Jew is. Who's the ultimate Jew? Is the Rebbe. Right? And to be connected with that and to having that as your identity, that's a choice. that we can freely make every day. L'chaim.
Coming up.
Any questions, any comments, any thoughts? That was a real farbringen. That wasn't even a class. That was a farbringen. And I mean, look at that, my cup run of thunder. I need more l'chaim. Okay, I hope that's all very clear then. Amazing. All right, folks. God bless you. TRC is going to be Thursday at 4 p.m. TRC Thursday, 4 p.m. based on the votes for those who voted. All right.